So we are on again. Here we are again. It's day, what day is it? Day how many? Day 19th.
19?
The
Yes.
19th. Oh my God, we've been on this journey for that long. It's August, it's the month of August. We are spotlighting Globuntu books, spotlighting our authors, giving you an insight into the kind of books that we write, taking you on a journey, on a conversation that we hope is as fun-filled for you as it is for us. We hope that it is insightful, that it is transformational. Above all, we hope that it is knowledgeable, because starting from today, as we started already, and going from now onward, we're gonna give you a lot of juicy content, not just from the books we write, but from the conversations that we have with our authors and our studio guests and our host. We're going to take you around the globe, go to Japan, go to South Africa, go to many other places. You just have to sit tight here. And from today, I wish to invite you, if you have children around, bring them on the screen. If you are a teacher, this may be a space where you may get some insight for your next lessons if you're keen on talking about Africa. If you're a person of African descent, you may get some really good content in here. If you're in Africa, please stay put and watch. Bring the family. If you have your popcorn or whatever you drink, bring your dinner, your lunch, and sit around and just listen to the conversation, and not listen but also participate. We are streaming live on YouTube. We are streaming live on Facebook. So if you're joining us on any one of those channels, we greet you. We are taking comments on Facebook. That's the main channel where we are streaming live. So those of you who have been here, you know how the journey has been. My name is Ankweta Beatrice Achaleke. I am a passionate serial author. I'm a facilitator. I am a committed publisher. Above all, I am a very, very proud African woman, a very, very unapologetically Black woman. And I believe that when it comes to owning our stories, we must be possessive, we must be um, we must be unapologetic, and we must be just the owners. We must own our story with all the might that we have in us. So my studio host is in Japan. This is my sister, friend, colleague, and whatever you can call it, historical journey friend. We're going to have this book around, this conversation today is around book one of the Africa for Smart Kids book series. And the title of that book is right here. It's an invitation. Let's talk about Africa. So, my friend P, let's talk about Africa. What is on your mind, my host?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're going to have this little conversation about the book Let's Talk About Africa. And um, I want for us to talk a little bit about how we met and
Mhm.
how this journey has begun. I want this to be more like a conversation rather than an interview. So,
Mhm.
uh, can you remember when we first met and what that was like?
Yes, yes. I remember it was sometimes around 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I got a message, an email from you after you watched my Shit Happen TED Talk on YouTube. I must say there were a lot of people who reached out to me at that time. I think that TED Talk was republished. It was 1 year thereafter it was republished. And there was like so many people writing to me from everywhere. And then this sister writes from me from Guam. And I'm like, Guam? Where is Guam? I had to go to the map. Where is Guam? And I remember when we had our first Zoom, was it on Zoom? We had our first Skype call.
Oh,
It
it's
was on
right.
Skype.
It's right. It was,
Yes.
mhm.
Zoom was not that popular at that time. My God. Time changes.
I
We had our
remember.
first Zoom call, and I saw you with your Bantu nuts, and I was like, "Who are you? Where do you come from? Bantu nuts?
Right.
This is Motobo in Cameroon. So, are you sure you're in Guam?"
Yes, I remember the conversation clearly. And when you said, "Who are you?" I'm thinking, "Well, who am I?" And it was such it was such a meeting because, as you know, I'm from Guyana and we hear a lot about Africa. especially in the month of August and the months leading up to August, because that's when we celebrate the emancipation of the enslaved Africans. So there's Africa on people's minds, and people would sing about Africa, and they would sing, if I can sing a tune for you, they would sing, carry me back a me mama country, carry me back
Mm.
home, carry me back a me mama country. And then they would sing, Africa is Mount Zion, Africa is Mount Zion, and they would sing, ole, ole,
Oh
ole,
my
ole,
God.
ole, ole, Mount Zion, and they would beat the drums and everything. So we're very
Oh
African
my goodness.
conscious. But and so we learned about our enslaved four parents who wanted to go back to Africa and all of that. And then to meet an African who's gonna ask me, "Who are you?" Where you come from? I never knew about you, Diana. How did you get there? How you're African? What are you doing in that place? So we read about and Africans, and perhaps we think that you know about us, and so it's very
Wait
good
one moment. Wait,
to speak about
P, wait
Africa.
one moment. Someone is knocking at the door. This is what it means to broadcast from home. May I know who is at the door? I'm busy right now. Can we do that later, please? Okay. I have when I finish my online session, I'll come to you. So this is live, girl. It's happening live.
So to meet you and to learn of what you were doing, it was really fortuitous to me. It was fortuitous. And I looked at your email tonight, and and I was saying that I didn't set out to meet you, but you crossed my path, and maybe it was meant to be. And then you said yes, and so we had that discussion going on. So that was interesting. So let's talk about Africa. Why did you write this book, and for whom did you write it?
P, I will take it up from our conversation for our meeting.
Yes.
And those who are watching, we will take you through that book. In this book launches, this Africa for Smart Kids book launches, we'll share the screen with you and take you through the chapters so you see what is in there, but also so you feel. It's about feeling. It's about an experience. It's a journey that you go on. It's not like reading any other book. If you're a person of African descent and you are in search of your identity and your roots and your heritage. Um, you know, um, the last 2 days we spoke about my journey. We spoke about Shit Happens. That was the book that kind of that was the tsunami that kind of opened this journey to write the Africa for Smart Kids book series. Um, and then we spoke about the affirmation, which was the next level of me going from that situation of shit happens and you questioning your whole livelihood, questioning your personality, everything that you stood for. It's like crumbling down, and you don't even know whether you're going or coming, and you just realize that if you want to stay here, then you have to let things go and redefine yourself. And above all, I had to find out who I am, who am I, where do I come from, on whose shoulders do I stand, what is my legacy. Having been in Europe, people will always consider Africa to be, from a negative perspective, and I think you know this too. I think you can tell us something about that.
Yes.
Having grown up in an African country, I've gone through a colonial education system, and then I'm going to Europe and thinking like I know Europe, spending 20 years there, and having people remind you every day that you don't belong. You probably have a citizenship, you speak the language better than some of the people in the country, you are doing so much, but someone always finds something to remind you, either about your skin color or about your accent. So people will tell me, "Oh, you speak German so well with an accent, but with an accent. Where do you come from? How long have you been here?" And I remember an incident at the airport when I had been to Cameroon with my kids in 2007, and while in Cameroon, the policeman took my passport and looked on my at my visa and said, no, before then, my friends in Austria were saying, oh, lucky you, you're going home. You're going home. Oh, how nice is that for you? And I had to go to the Cameroonian embassy to apply for a visa because I have an Austrian passport. And these two countries don't allow dual nationality. So I had to go to the embassy and apply for a visa. And I filled this form and they're asking me, where are you going to? Where are you going to be staying? What forms do you have? Give us an address where you're going to Cameroon. And I'm saying, like, I'm going home. I'm going home. Don't you know that? So that was my first trauma when I started asking myself, who are you really? Who are you? Here, you think you're not at home. People remind you that you're not at home. And when you're going to the place that is supposed to be home, you get people asking you, where are you going, for how long, and all of that. And mind you, I was given a single entry visa to Cameroon, meaning if I stepped out, I wouldn't have been able to come in. Okay, so this is me coming to Cameroon. I get there and the police officer takes my passport, looks at the visa, and mistakes the date of issue of the visa with the expiry date and said, you're illegal here. And I said, okay, so where are you going? What are you going to do? Are you going to deport me to Austria? And that got me questioning myself again. Who are you? Who are you? Where do you belong? Now, this is me on my way back to Austria. I get to the airport and the custom officer takes my migration officer takes my passport, looks at me, looks at the passport and says, you don't look like an Austrian. And in that moment, all that came into my mind was, you neither. And this police officer was so angry with me and said, don't be arrogant. You, these foreigners, you come to our country, and because you get the passport, you become arrogant. And that was, again, the point where I start questioning myself. And now, this is me a couple of years thereafter, my life is crumbling down. And I'm asking myself, what the heck is going on? People are telling me I'm in this country, I have the passport, and they're telling me I'm a foreigner. They tell me I speak with an accent. They tell me I don't look like people from this country. And when I go back to the country where I come from, they tell me I'm illegal.
Right.
I was like, am I schizophrenic or what is happening here? So when things come and I had to refine myself, it dawned on me that I needed to go after my root. I needed to rediscover Africa. I needed to. And having been in Austria and having been in the public space that I was, there were a lot of questions about Africa. You know, people will say things about Africa. You see kindergarten children growing up and saying, oh, one day I will go save Africa. You see them putting together their old stuff. They're doing project, they want to go save Africa. You see young people who go through your mentorship. After the mentorship, they go to Africa and they become project managers. And you're living in their country for 20 years, you don't even get any recognition. You can't even say you're an expert in any Austrian thing or European thing, you know. So I knew that something is very wrong. Something is very wrong. So when I moved back to South Africa, I had different plans in mind. But in 2016, my kids came to visit. And while they were visiting, my daughter's friends kept texting her. They said, do you have anything to eat in Africa? Are you sleeping on the trees with monkeys? Do you have internet? Should we send you something to eat? And she was like, Mom, I don't want to have to answer these questions anymore. Why don't you write the book that you've been wanting to write all this time? You wanted to write books about Africa. Now you must start writing those books. So that is where, you know, something that had been on my mind, that was like the last button, that was the hot button. That got me on the 19th of December to embark on a journey of writing a book about Africa. And the title was just going to be, Let's Talk About Africa. So when I started writing, so much came. I've discovered so much. Not the things that I knew, but the research that I was doing. It was like I opened the door to something that was waiting out there. And I saw so many things all of a sudden. And this one manuscript became a very long one. So when I sent it to my daughter boss, who asked me to write, my daughter is my boss. She, when we continued the conversation, you see the kind of boss that I had and how being my boss is impacting the journey, the writing journey. So when I sent it to her and said, so this is the first manuscript, she came back to me 2 days after and said, Mom, sit down. She called me on WhatsApp. Mom, sit down. I said, okay. So the good news is I have read all the manuscript because over the past couple of months, I haven't read a book. But I read all the manuscript. I said, okay. So she said, but there's a very big bad news. I said, okay, boss, talk to me. She said the bad news is there's too much text. The book is too big. You're writing for children. This is not the kind of books we read. You must break it down. Break it down, put pictures in there. And then I sent it to my mom in Cameroon. She read it and she said, pictures are missing. We need images. So this is how the series began. It was one book that I had to break down, and I had 3 books from there. And so I just became hungry. I became hungry. I wanted some more. And I know it has been a very long answer, but I needed to go right back there to get people understand, the journey that we are embarking on right now. So I write for myself first. I write about the things that I want to know about this continent, about my heritage. I go after it, and whatever I see, I put it in a book because I want to share. And I want to share because I want the next generation not to go through the things that I went through. I don't want them, wherever they are living in the world, I want them to know how rich their heritage is. I want them to know how powerful their African history is. I want them to embrace their blackness, their history, their whatever is African with pride. They should embrace it with pride. Because if we don't put it out there and stand on it with pride, people will always put us down with it. People who don't even know. People who are kindergarten children. You train children, they grow up and they want to teach you about Africa. We got to know our Africa. And we don't only have to know it, we have to embrace it, celebrate it, and own it with pride, because that is who we are.
Yeah, that's powerful. And what I think about this book is that these kinds of books are necessary because they help to populate a landscape of knowing with stories. And if you know anything about me, is I'm passionate about stories because stories
I
are
was
so
going to come
simple.
right to you. I was going to come right to you. You are a story writer. Come tell us about your story. You and
Yeah.
I are having a conversation.
Stories are so important because they're very easy to digest. They're really easy to handle. And everybody has story. And regardless of your culture, you have stories, and you can enter into lots of discourses about stories. And what I meant to say is that these stories must be on the landscape of knowing so that they can sit beside other dominant stories, lest our
Mhm,
children come to think that the stories they read in books about Africa as a place of deficit and of negatives be
mhm,
remain entrenched as the only stories they hear. When I was reading about Africa as a child, I was reading them in history books. And
mhm.
Africa was the place where slaves came from. That was what we were taught. But come to find out, slaves didn't come from Africa. Africans came from Africa. You see?
Right,
And
right. They
so
were captured and
it's a slave
enslaved.
our origin stories are couched in slavery. And there's another thing, they're couched in rebuke because growing up, I didn't have TV growing up. I think TV
Mm,
came to Guyana in the 80s or somewhere thereabouts. So I didn't have TV, I had books. And it was animals, beautiful animals. And if you didn't eat your food, your parents would say, you better eat your food. Children starving in Africa. And so you
mhm,
would get newspaper images or whatever of children, emaciated children, and the UN posters, about these
mhm.
children. So that was a part of the story, the sources that we got our information about Africa. And if you keep repeating those kinds of stories, then what? We lose the other things. So I was very happy that an African woman is telling stories about Africa. And so let's go in. Any question you want to ask? Am I missing
Uh,
anything?
I'm glad you say that. It makes me very sad inside to know that the image that is propagated in the world about Africa was also, came right through to Guyana as well. The image of poverty, of misery, of hunger, of all of those things. And you realize that, I mean, you have been to Africa once, you've been to South Africa. Did you see
Twice.
anyone anytime that is hungry? I don't want to say there is no starvation here. I don't want to say
Right.
there is no misery in Africa. I don't want to say there is no poverty. But Africa is made up of 55 continents. And if we know how
Right.
rich Africa is in mineral resources. And we'll see that when we start talking about book two and some of the other books. If you just ask yourself the question, why did the colonialists come to Africa if Africa was so poor? If you ask yourself, why did they stay for hundreds of years? Why did they why did they capture Africans and take them into to build other countries? If you ask yourself the questions, why do we still have neocolonization in Africa today? Why are the Chinese coming to Africa today? Is Africa that poor? Why do we have all the global companies in Africa today? Look at all the multinationals, you'll find them here. You look at your Ferraris and all your luxury cars and luxury goods, they are all here. So if we are that poor continent, why? If we were that poor continent, they will not be here. We have many people coming to say they want to invest in Africa. We see Mr. Bill Gates coming. We know what he's doing here. So much is happening. But in the surface of that, because that is happening in the background, we are told the story of poverty, of misery. There are a couple of African countries that have problems, the countries at the desert that have problems with food sufficiency. But the whole continent, the rest of the continent, can fit those countries that are along the desert because they produce enough. The reason why we believe those stories is because we don't know our Africa. We don't know. We need to know our Africa. We need to ask questions. We need to do our own investigations. We need to, today is not like in our time, P. During my school time, you had to go to the library to do research, to find out information, and you could only have the books that were at your disposal. But today, with internet, I mean, you have access to tons and tons of information. And I want to say social media is for us, Africa. It should be the space where we go to share our story of Africa. Let's share the story of the glory of Africa because Africa is a glorious continent. That's why people come to us. That's why they don't leave us in peace. That's why they're exploiting so much. And again, when we go through the books, we'll see some of the facts. I am not talking from a space of emotions. And yes, I am emotional because it is my identity. It has to do with who I am, with my source. And I put a lot of emotions in there unapologetically. Tell me I'm emotional, and I will say, yes, I am. And I have every right to be. And I will not apologize for that. So let me see, P. I see our sister Cornelia from Germany. She's out there. She says, hello, powerful ladies. We see you, sister. You're in Germany with the SA flag and a hat. We acknowledge you and we take that hat and we share with you. So right, sister, I hear you. Rachel from Uganda says, because an African is an asset to them. Mm-hmm. Africa is an asset to them. Grace says, watching from South Africa. Yes, Grace, you should be in school and learning, but I'm glad you're there. I hope some of your teachers are joining the conversation as well. So, P, back to you. You've shared with us your experience growing up. Now you are an author, you're writing, and you are doing your research. Has your perspective of Africa changed ever since we've been interacting, but ever since you've been doing your own research and writing your own books, from the perspective, from the information that you got when you were young?
Of course. You have to read for yourself, and the more I looked at Africa and my African roots, in terms of blackness and all of that, I've come to learn a number of things. That the colonial gaze, if if black people look at themselves and the continent through colonial gaze, you will see deficit. And
Mm-hmm.
that gaze does not only look at Africa, that gaze looks at every other place that has resources
Mm-hmm.
as a place to take and to gain and to use and abuse, and stuff like that. They are There are so many ways of looking at it, but I've learned that I have to focus on my story. You see, some people might say, well, what about these other people's stories? Well, in my books, I don't want to tell those stories. Those stories have been told. I don't want to repeat those stories. They are libraries you can go and research other people's stories, and the ones that are dominant in the texts and so on. But when I sit down to write, I want to write of an experience that people of African descent have endured, have gone through, and to make sense of it. So that's where I'm coming from. Um, as you know, I'm an academic, so and I study rhetorics. Rhetorics, in layman's terms, it's about how systems in societies work, whether it's institutions or what wherever. And so I look at the village because I come from an African purchase village. So I look at the things in my village. I look at them as though they're familiar. I look at them as if they're strange. And when I began to write my book, I began to be very intentional about theorizing our stories. I'm not just telling stories, I'm theorizing these stories because there are people who will go to our village. The time's going to come when strangers will go to our village and tell our stories and tell us how to interpret them. I'm not leaving that to chance. I'm going to tell our people what I think about it, how I'm going to interpret it. I don't have all the answers. I'm never about providing all the answers. That's another thing that schooling does. That you feel you have to plug every hole, you have to triangulate everything, you have to make sure it's tight, tight, tight. Uh-uh. I am not doing that with these books. I'm leaving space for people to enter the conversations and broaden the conversation. Because here again, the colonial methodology is to plug every hole so I can own it and I can say it's mine and mine only, and only I can do this the best way I can. Yes, I want to give my best effort, but I am deliberately not going there to tell every bit of the story and to tell all versions and all facets. But when I give one aspect of the story, I'm going to interpret it and break it down for the audience I'm speaking with. And then I'm leaving some for the people who are coming after me. Like I said, in our culture, when you eat, you're supposed to leave a little bit back. It's called manners. Please, bambai and left. The Guyanese who are listening to me, you leave for somebody else to come and enjoy and to keep carrying the stories. So that's the way I see telling the African story from my perspective and from my place, my geography, which is the village of Buxton in Guyana. And it can be representative of so many other villages in Guyana and villages all over the world because people can enter these stories if they choose to or not.
Mm, mm, mm. I hear you. I hear you, and I think the more you and I have been having conversations, the books that I write, they have been influenced by the conversations that you and I have been having over these years. Because I
Yes.
realize that you being out there, even though you're not on the continent, you and I recognize it very quickly that our ancestors who were taken from here to where you were born, they took along the culture. I think they were taking at a time when African culture and African value and history was still very glorious. It was glorious. They took pieces of that with them. They nurtured it in a foreign country, in foreign spaces, and they treasured them. We who were left here were brainwashed through the school system. We are brainwashed through the culture. Our TV, I mean, on TV, the films that we watch are Hollywood. If not Hollywood, it's Bollywood. Okay, now Nollywood is coming, but how many people are watching Nollywood are replacing Hollywood with Nollywood films from Nigeria and Gollywood and all of that? I'm happy that they're coming. Our education system was either adopted to that of the colonialist, either the French system, the Portuguese system, the English system, and all of that. So we lost it along the line. And the ancestors who were taken survived the journey on the way to the
Mhm.
other side of the ocean. They took some of these values with them. And the conversations that I have with you, they remind me of some of those bits and pieces. And they help me to go back and do research. To go back and do research. Okay, peace said
Yes,
this. Where does that come from? Where did that come from? And I think this is
yes,
something that we can learn on the journey of healing. The journey of
yes,
reconnecting the continent and the diaspora,
right.
finding each other, sharing our stories, and allowing ourselves to heal the divide, the wounds of the deep divide that has been between us, so we can find ourselves and stand up as, people of African descent, irrespective of where we are. And I think the people who divided us, they knew how powerful we could be if we stood together. And I think all the information that comes in between to show us how poor we are or to keep us divided or fighting against each other is still part of the master plan to keep us apart. So we don't stand together as one person because the powers will be just unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. So I think we got to be aware of that. What game we are playing, what role we are doing, we're playing in that master plan, and telling our story, going back, doing research, and rediscovering who we were, who we are, to shape who we want to become and how we want to connect to each other is extremely important, especially now. So I am very blessed to have you, P, in my life and to have the conversations. You've been a teacher to me. You've been an eye opener to me, and I'm really thankful for that.
Thank you for the opportunity. You talked about bridging the continent and bridging the divide, which was something I was very, very excited about. Because in this book, you write in conversational style. And it's the same style I write my books, which I remember when I met you and you showed people. I met this woman and she said she's writing this book. And next thing you know, she sends me the manuscript. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did she do that? You don't even know me. You send me your entire manuscript. Is that I thought that was crazy. So to show reciprocity, I sent her back my manuscript for my book, The Gates of the Kamaka. And so I sent it back, and then you said, "Oh my goodness, this is so full," and we had that conversation. So it was like a bridging of the continent and of the peoples, which was fascinating through conversation. And one of the characters from this book is in my
Now
book.
let's go meet the characters first. Let's go meet the characters first. Let's go
Let's
meet
go
the
meet the
characters
character. And
first so that we get it.
start with my boy.
Yes.
Yes, because
So
that's where we get to talk. You get to teach me, and I get to ask you, and you go and get your story to share with me, and then you get to hear how the practice or whatever I'm talking about happens in the village, and to connect it. You got to talk about it. Go ahead.
Uh, yes. So when I started to write these stories, I knew I did not want to write. I knew, I come from a storytelling background. My grandmother was our TV. We used to, in the evening,
She was
we used to gather around my grandmother, and she was
she
our
was
TV, and the TV,
oh
the
yes,
television.
we had those too.
So
Yes, ahead.
so she would tell stories and so when I wanted to write this book series, I wanted it to be a storytelling. I wanted to take people back to that time when we used to listen to my grandmother, because it was the most educative time, when you sit down with your granny and then she's telling you all the stories, you're having fun, you're laughing. So I had to come up with a setting that is not that is different from the mainstream. I didn't want to do a mainstream book. So I created characters, and my characters are live characters. The characters are my daughter in the book. So let me go to the screen. Let me share my screen just to have those who are watching to have an idea of how this book looks like. So I'm going to go screen window, open the window. I'm going to share this manuscript with you. Pauline says, I share manuscript. Yes, because I think that this dream is too big to keep for yourself.
Yes,
I can't keep it to myself. We have to share, and many people have to write the African story and the story of people of African descent. And we have to inspire each other to do that. And sometimes it takes sharing what you've done for you to get someone to be, to get to that space, or to get the feedback that you need to refine what is it that you're sharing. If you don't put out anything, you don't get anything coming back in. Example on Facebook, if you don't post anything, you may not see anything being responded or posted on the blog. So, so we share as we go along. And so this is the manuscript that you see on your screen. This is book one. It has been recommended for school, for which I'm very happy. And I'll just take you down the different parts of the book. There's the dedication, the table of content. So it tells you what we'll be talking about in this book. Let me maybe quickly read the table of content for you. So there is you meet from the text of the author. It's a little bit like a preview or a preface. Then we talk about the storytellers. You meet the storytellers. There is Mosquito Zangalo. And then chapter one is, when I wrote this book out of the space where I wanted to show people, I wanted to respond to the stupid questions that people ask. And let me put it that way. Some of these questions that people ask. Does the sun always shine in Africa? Does everyone live in mud houses in Africa? What do women do in Africa? Who are some of the famous people in Africa? Which animals live in Africa? What do I tell friends about Africa? And how do I get to Africa? So I built this table of content to answer some of the questions. But as you see, when I started writing the books, the focus shift from wanting to justify to people to actually unveiling Africa to them, so they can discover it through my eyes and through the eyes of my characters. So right down there, we start with a map of Africa so that we can see all the 55 countries of Africa. You get to meet them before you get into the story. Then I have the acknowledgement, and I think I see my friend Pauline somewhere here. Am I acknowledging you? I saw your name. Yes. Pauline Bird for proofreading and editing the first manuscript. You're right there, right in book one, girl. You're right there. So we have the preface, and then we have from the text of the author, it's just an introduction about why I'm writing this book. And also, when I started this series, it was 2016, the year before the UN had declared the International Decade of People of African Descent, which goes from 2015 to 2024. And when I look at the information that was being put out there, it was all full of negativity, the same thing that we're used to. And for me, I wanted to create characters that can go tell another story of people of African descent, stories that make us proud. So here you meet your storyteller. I shortly introduce them to you. And there we have our first character. And I remember when I met, I struggled to get people to design the characters for me. I really struggled. I spoke to so many people. Many people did not understand where I was going. So I had to give my daughter's picture to the young designer. Ketso finally did this. He's the one who does all the book covers, and we'll get to meet him sometimes during the conversation. So Ketso had to create a picture of the character from my daughter's picture. This is Nguisse. She's the detective. She asks questions along the line, always asking questions. And that's who she is. I needed to get the characters that I know because I could go into their mind and see the kind of questions that they will ask. So that's why I had to create live characters. Yes.
Can you pronounce her name? Pronounce her name, because we don't know how to say names like that. So you have to tell us
her name is Nguisse, and Nguisse is the name of my great-grandmother. So if we're talking about naming tradition, there's something here. It's not just a name. She is named after my great-grandmother. And Nguisse means Mother Earth. So you see, there's already a lot of content in here. So you see her, and I needed to dress her African. So I went to Cameroon and took the Cameroonian fabric, and we dressed her in a modern way, like young girls dressed, but in an African fabric. It was very important for me because every page, every word, every letter in this book tells a story. The construction is that each page should be part of the storytelling. Whatever you see is part of the storytelling that we want to say. If it is not in text, it is in picture form. So we meet Nguisse, and she introduces herself. And then we meet Atabong. Atabong is my son. He is Nguisse's elder brother. And he is someone who is very analytical. He takes time. He listens. And then he comes with a boom question. And you have to think. You have to go look for answers because he will be looking at you. And so I had to put him in to give me the nudge to go look for more content. I let Nguisse ask me a lot of questions, and I let Atabong help me to go do thorough research to find the real answers. And to continue the conversation, I needed to go to Cameroon and get, you see, they're all dressed in the fabrics that you find in Cameroon. I needed to go right to Cameroon and get my nephew. He is the son of one of my cousins who is the king of his village. He's a paramount chief. He's a lawyer by profession. He is currently one of the. He was the delegate of social affairs in one of the provinces in Cameroon for many years. and now he's working in Yaoundé. He's a civil servant. So I needed to borrow his son, his first son, to become the Cameroonian uh, wisdom keeper, because he comes from the chieftaincy, from the kingdom of Essoata, that is in Cameroon. He comes from there, and being the son of the king, he's a wisdom keeper. So I had to make him to be that person that answers all the questions in the book. Those the two young ones coming from the diaspora are coming home on holiday. They meet him and they start talking about Africa, and they have a lot of questions because the two young characters, Nguisse and Atabong, want to go back to school and be able to teach children in their school about Africa. So they have to get as much knowledge as possible from Prince Fuareke so that they can take it back to Austria. So that's where the journey begins. And because everyone thinks Africa is full of mosquitoes, I grew up with mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are everywhere, and I don't like them when they do that zzz on my head. And when I was writing, they were always here. So I had to rehabilitate Mosquito and give Mosquito a job in the book. So Mosquito is that one that will always ask you questions. And you know the song Zangalewa, they call it Waka Waka, the one that was done by Shakira. It was actually done by a band in Cameroon called Zangalewa. And that was the title of the song was Zangalewa. So I needed to find a name that is, popular in Cameroon, and say, okay, the mosquito will have a name, and the name is going to be Zangalo. So after every chapter, Mosquito Zangalo has a question, test your knowledge. And so to get started, we have a mosquito quiz where I tell you about, mosquito, what they do, and how many of them are in the world, and you have a quiz that you can take the quiz right here. It's like a game, you just do some games. The books that we write, they give you information, but they provoke you, they challenge you, just like you said, P. We're not chewing it and giving you to you, the reader, and saying this is it. We are giving you chunks and igniting your curiosity and telling you there is much more, but you have to go for it. So you can receive it from your perspective. You can receive it in your context, and you can try to understand and interpret it in the context where you are. So these are just like little chunks to ignite your interest in knowing your story. So right there, the conversation begins. Does the sun always shine in Africa? So I don't want to have to read all of this to you. I just want to show you the chapters, how they appeared. They are in the form of a conversation. And the good thing about this is that in a classroom, you can actually, or at home, you can read this in turn. It's like you sitting together, you assume different roles and you read. It becomes entertaining. It becomes fun. It has that fun factor. It has an informative factor, but it also has a social factor. Instead of sitting down and everyone has their smartphone and they're doing their thing, what you do is you sit down and you read a book together and you reflect. And when you do this, especially parents who are in the diaspora or working parents, some of us who grow out of our culture, it may take you down to memory lane. So you start telling the story of your family, telling the story of where you come from. So this is written this way to really, really help people, to encourage them to tell their own story. Go on memory lane with your children. Go back to your childhood. Go to your family. Discover them. Discover your roots. So this is what the conversation is all about. And when they go down, when they're talking about food, I put out some food there. In Cameroon, puff puff or beignet, that's our staple food. We love eating it. So I had to put it there. When we talk about roasted fish and miondo, I put some pictures there so you can see. Now I put a lot of things about South Africa because I'm based in South Africa now. So you see the typical South African pap. That's what is eaten. When you go to Soweto, you see the quota. It's called a Soweto burger. When my daughter comes here, what she wants to do first is she wants to go to Soweto and have a Soweto burger. And this thing, P, I think you tested it, didn't you?
Yes, I tried it.
You did. Okay. So it's just showing them some food as well alongside the knowledge that they get. Now, this is typical. At the end of this chapter, Mosquito Zangalo comes with a question. Says, so how much did you understand? Let's do a quiz. And then you have all the questions here. Now, if you're a teacher and you're using this book, you already have some questions there. You don't have to go create questions. It is very easy to use. This book is very easy to use. Do all people in Africa live in mud houses? It's that question. And we're saying we do not only, even in mud houses, we have some of the most beautiful architectures in Africa which are made of mud. So when you have this, you look at this is the Ndebele houses in South Africa. You go to North Cameroon, you see beautiful houses like this. You go to Burkina Faso, you have the Chebelele houses. This one is Agawi in Chad. So I showed them some mud houses. When you talk about mud houses, are you talking about those beautiful houses? Yes, we do live in them, but we do more than that. So I take them to Timbuktu. This is the University of Timbuktu. It's one of the most fascinating mud architectures in the whole world. So I show them that one right there, and then we continue the conversation. Then I take them to the cities. This is Luanda, the capital of Angola. Okay, let's leave our mud houses and see. We have other things as well. This is how the capital city looks like. I take them to Dar es Salaam. This is in Tanzania. So see how we also have those skyscrapers and whatever you're talking about. Take them right down there to Ghana. This is Kwame Nkrumah Square. It has changed. This is an old picture. But I say, if that's what you're talking about, let's go for it. At the same time, we go through the population of African cities in terms of ranking. So we see that Lagos is the capital, is the city in Nigeria. It is the highest ranking African country city. It's the most populated African city, and it is the world rank is number 15. So you get those kind of information in the book while they're having the conversation. This is in Douala in Cameroon. I showed them, if you're looking for flyovers, we have flyovers as well in Africa. We do have them. This is in Nairobi in Kenya. So we do have that as well. So, and then in chapter 3, what do women do in Africa? People say we African women are submissive, we're less educated, we are this and that, we're poor. So I'm telling the kids are having that conversation and talking about some very powerful African women. This is when I first came in contact with the fact that Africa has more female political leaders, especially presidents, that I knew. Because many people knew Ellen Johnson. This is where I was. I knew her. And when I started discovering her, I saw Sylvie Kinyengi. And I was like, oh, wow. In Burundi, they already had a female president as far back as 1993. Wow. When I looked further, I saw Gabon just next door to Cameroon. I did not know all of those female presidents. And then I saw, as far back as 1975, we had our first female president in Africa, and that was Elizabeth Domitian. And my world changed completely, P. My world changed completely. So you'll see later I wrote a book, Africa's Female Presidents and Prime Ministers. It came from here because I went from one to the next. It's like the door was opening and I could see all of them. And today I know that we have had 37 female presidents and prime ministers and deputies in Africa since independence, including the African Union chair, the first woman to chair the African Union. It makes them all together 37. And we will launch that book sometimes next week, and you get to meet each one of them. Now, I met Evie, the first female president in South Africa. I mean, she was in just for 14 days, but she was there. She held that position. And of course, Joyce Banda. So I just want to show you that I discovered women, a whole lot of women, just because I went from that question, what do women do in Africa? You see, they're all here. They're all here. And so the conversation continues. You see how passionate I am about this book because it gives me so much. And I said, okay, they've been president. My grandmother is my number one role model in the world. I know the things that she did, how powerful she was, even though she could neither read nor write. So I had to go pick her and put her right here and say, Grandma, come tell the world. We don't have to invent your story. You were too big for the world not to know you. So my grandmother is right there. And there is another book when I'm talking more about her, but she was a princess. She sat in so many political offices in the village. And next to her, I put my other female icon, Winnie Mandela, and say, hey, these are my two powerful women. And because I got the chance to meet Winnie Mandela twice when I got to South Africa, being in the presence of this woman reminded me of my grandmother. I just had to put the two of them together. By so doing, I'm also saying, P, when we write books, we have the chance to uplift our own heroes and heroes, the people in our family that we take for granted, whose stories are never written. It is our responsibility to go pick them and put them in books. they existed in the time of oral culture. The stories were handed down. Now we are in a phase where we're writing. It is our responsibility in our writing to make sure that we feature them, we make them visible, we make them uh, visible, but also reachable. We make them present. We bring them back to life through our writing. Okay, I'll just go very quickly down, and then so I get some icons, some female icons. The Brenda Fassi is South African. Yusuf Ndio is Senegalese. They're all musicians, and people know them. So I needed to put those in as well. And then Mosquito Zangalo comes with questions. Now we go. Which animals are there in Africa? Everyone thinks that we Africa is full of animals. Safari. They all come here for safari, and they ignore us. And even though people take them to the safari, they ignore us. They put more emphasis and more worth on the animal. So I needed to show them some of the animals, just to say I see that too. So give them a picture of the big five, but also take them somewhere along the River Nile. The River Nile is the longest river in the world, and it has these dragonflies. There's so many of them around the River Nile. It's just something that is so typical for the River Nile, and I had to show them all of that. Um, and this is the River Nile, just a picture. So when we're talking about it, you have a picture of the kids have a picture of what it looks like. And because the storytellers are coming from Austria, we needed to go to Austria to the zoo because there are a lot of African traces in this zoo. So we needed to go there and claim that story and say the zoo may have all of this. It may be an Austrian zoo, but hey, some of the things that are inside there are African, and we know it. So the young storytellers are going around the world and trying to find their legacy and to own it. Now, the question of how do I move around Africa? There is a train that goes from Cape Town to Cairo. It's basically from the bottom of Africa to the top of Africa. It's called the Pride of Africa. And I needed to show them with this, it takes you 29 days from Cape Town to go to Cairo. Okay, you can pass through all the other African countries. This is how it looks inside. You can go by train. Yes, and what is the next question? What do I tell my friends? So it's like they've gotten all this information. The question is, what do I tell them now? And so the answer is go tell them to do their own research. Tell them Africa may not be what they think it is. They must open their minds. They must look beyond what they think they know. Maybe they must unlearn some things about Africa that they think they know so they can discover Africa. And the last chapter is what should I read next? And this is why I introduced book two. This is when I already knew that I was going to write a series and introduce book two. And right down there, you see the list of the titles that are available. So when you pick one book, you already know you can go from one book to the next. So there is a resource center right there. And to close it all, you have some of the titles of the books. And because we want to engage kids, we have a page there, Smart Kids Personal Creative Ideas. You may have come about some other ideas while you're reading the book. So we have a space for you there so you can jot them down and really own this book. So P, this is basically what book one looks like. That is
Wow.
basically what book one looks like for anyone who is watching. It's a book that is filled with fun, takes you to places, but also entertains you. And I must grab my charger. Keep speaking. I grab my charger. Um,
Okay.
but I hear you,
So
P.
yeah, so listening to B tell her story about, how she laid out her book and what was her intention. I just want to say it's very accessible, and it is one of the books that you would not probably see in libraries when it comes to the topic of Africa or African life and things like that, or even for kids. What I like about this book is not a once upon a time book. It's not once
Mm-hmm.
upon a time. Your granny is inside of here. People look down on village people and think that village people are just ordinary people. Yes, they're ordinary, but I call village people intellectuals. They know their stuff. They know their stuff there, and there's much to be learned and much to be taught from village people. And when we engage them in our books, we again we make them, we put them in the forefront of our ways of knowing, if that's
Mm-hmm.
a way we want to consider it as a way of knowing,
Yeah.
because what it shows is our interconnectivity. It shows how we get intergenerational knowledge, how
Mm-hmm.
we pass on multi-generational knowledge. We get to see it. So when we put it in the books, we get to show everybody how it's done. We get to let our kids acknowledge the ones who came before us, whom they would have never met, but they can read them in books. Because I always say, when we move off the scene, they must have and know what we said, because that's an important thing for an African woman. As we know, African women, like so many other women from different cultures, they tell the stories of their generations, or they ought to. And when we are remiss in doing that, we make a gap. We leave a big hole in society, and we leave holes in the lives of our children, because when are they going to pass on? So I like how you did this for your children, to be able to tell stories that you now have taught them, and you bring forward all these generations, of people in your life and the roles they played, and even and about Africa itself. So that's really admirable. Yes, and it's really inspired the way what the story said was written, and navel string. Yes.
Mm. P, I see. You know what I love about this? Rachel is in Uganda, and just being part of the conversation. Rachel, I love the way you're owning your story. I love, love, love your comment. What does she say? In Uganda, those small houses are called OBC Sila. I don't know if I pronounce it well, but now you see those houses. Let's put many of them in books. Rachel, I challenge you. I challenge you. If you don't, if you're wondering about how you can write, please reach out to us. We want to see those houses in the in the books. She says the source of the River Nile is in Uganda, and in a town called Jinja. Yes, we want to see all of that in the book. In a book, you see, you're giving me. I did not even know that. We're learning from each other. Rachel, I'm coming after you, and you must come after me, because we need this knowledge. We need to share this knowledge with many more people. When you hear about the River Nile, some people think it originates from Egypt. We know that it passes through, I think, 11 African countries, but it is not just in Egypt. Because in Egypt, when you see some of the movies that have been done on the River Nile in Egypt, you think it is just something in Egypt, but it crosses 11 African countries. And as Rachel is just telling us, the origin is in Uganda, in a small town called Jinja. You find that in my book, in one of my books, very soon. Rachel, thank you, but you have to write your own book. So Nakwa says, I'm so excited about the train that connects all Africa. I haven't heard about it before. When you join the train of the Let's Talk About Africa, the Africa for Smart Kids book series, where the stories say Never String, Guyana, Buxton Village, Africa, you're going to learn a whole lot of new things.
Yes.
Geraldine Watson says, watching from Washington, D.C. Geraldine, we send you greetings from Japan via South Africa to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
So it's about our story, and we're in every corner of the earth. We need to own our stories. We need to know them. We need to discover them. We need to embrace them. We need to collect them. We need to document them. We need to share them. We need to tell them. We need to own them. We need to drive them. I can't insist enough. And it's the journey that we need everyone on. Because Geraldine, the story of your family, I don't know it. Until you tell it, I will not know it. And I will be interested to know it. Nagwa, until you tell your story, I will not know it. I challenge you to tell it. Tell me your family story. Rachel, I'm sending this message to you as well. I know that Mohetswe Grace, she's already writing, and I can't wait to read that book. And Cornelia, you have a powerful African story over there in Germany. We need you to write your book, because you have to tell that side of the story as well. So, am I forgetting? Have I overseen anyone online? No. So, P. The journey has only begun. Tomorrow
I have
we're
my
talking about
companion here. My
Kobe
companion
is
would
there.
sit down. Yes, this is Kobe,
What
everybody.
language does Kobe speak? Does
Japanese and English. Yes, Japanese and
Kobe
English.
must learn an African language, Swahili or Kiswahili or Bangwa, that's my mother tongue, or Lingala or Zulu.
Yes, yes.
Cornelia
Um,
says, can you hear how loud I am getting? Yes, 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 darling. Cornelia, I'll come after you. Don't just say yes, 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 yes. I want to see the book. And Pauline and I are here. If you need any help, we will give you as much as you can. But you are the only one who can write that book.
Yeah, B,
So
I have something to
tomorrow,
say.
tomorrow we'll be
Yeah.
going to book two. Yes, P, you're saying something.
Yeah. What I was saying is that in writing these books, for me, at least my experience was I have a story to tell, and I let that story direct me in how it's gonna come out, you know, and I'm willing to follow it where it's going. It's quite an experience in doing it. To do it, you have to put a when the mission is so strong, you take the chance, you take the risk, and I was prepared to be vulnerable. I was prepared to fail at this thing, because I'd never done this before. So, I mean, I told stories, but I'd never written stories like this. And more than that, to show it to the public. So, what kind of challenges you had regarding writing this book? Because we talked about some of these challenges, and if people look closely, they can see what they are. But let's talk about that, because Geraldine will write, and Nagwa will write, and what's her name in Germany will write. Grace is right.
Cornelia.
Cornelia, yes, because I'm not looking at my Facebook. Sorry, Cornelia, I can't deal with the Facebook and a dog and everything. So, yes. So, talk about that to end up the program.
P, what again, I set out to write a book to answer questions, the questions that my daughter presented to me, and say find answers to those, so I don't have to I don't have to, always justify or answer the questions. And when I got into it with an open mind. And let me tell you something. I was so excited with the first three books. Even though they went through editing, you edited for me. I had no money. I did not have money. At the moment, I tell people I have more books than I have money because we don't buy books the way we should be buying. So if you're writing a book and thinking you make money out of it, you're in for a big disappointment. Your money must come from somewhere else or through different activities. So when I got into this, I didn't have the money. I had never designed a book in my well. I designed my first book when the publisher in Austria refused to publish my book. But I got a graphic designer to design for me. And when I started on this journey and I realized I was going to be writing a series of books and I had no money, no resources, I had to teach myself how to write. I had to teach myself how to design books. I had to teach myself everything that I know today. I had to learn because I knew it was something that I was going to be on this journey for a long time. I was going to have to write many more books. Um, and I made a lot of mistakes. I uploaded on Amazon book one and book two. There were a lot of typos in there. And I remember one of my friends in DC, no, in New York, Mark. Mark was one of the first to buy the books. So he bought and then he came on Facebook and posted and said, I got my copy. I'm the first, Beatrice. I'm the first to buy the book. And then when I went back to read the book, I saw all the mistakes. And I was like, oh my God, what will Mark be thinking about me right now? And I don't even know who else has bought this book. So I had to go back and forth, take out the book from Amazon, reload them. But each time I always see a typo. I always see a typo.
Yeah,
And
me too.
I had to do a video and just, put it out again and say, people, this is who I am. In as much as I pay people to do the editing, I pay what I have. And this drive, the drive to write this book is so strong that I have to admit to myself, I'm not an English teacher. This is not a language course. It's about telling my history. And I want to tell that history, even if I have to make mistakes, even if I have to write with typos. And being the dyslexic writer that I am, have ever, someone who is passionate about writing, but writes with typos. You have so much that you want to say. And I sit down and I struggle to write. People ask me, how did you write 19 books in less than 3.5 years? I don't know how I did it. But one thing is, when you are in you realize that you're not writing, it's being delivered to you. You're just a channel. You just have to receive and take it out, deliver it to the people for whom it is destined. You're just a channel. That's what I tell myself. And I tell myself, the channel can have some loopholes. You can have holes along the way. You can have breakdowns, but you don't have to let that stop you from delivering what is channeled through you. Okay. And I tell myself, I think the people that do my proof editing, I challenge them all the time. They're still with one book and I finished two others. And they're lying here. I mean, I have 4 other manuscripts that are here that I'm done with, but they've not yet proof edited. and I can't really take them out. So that space of vulnerability, you embrace it and you just move along because you realize that the vision is bigger than you. It's more powerful, and its impact. Let me tell you something, P. One person bought my book. Each time that a person buys my book, I want to take you inside of me now. I'm like, oh my God, what typos did they see in there? Oh my God, how many typos are they going to come up with? And 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with someone who is very, very top up there. He is the person who founded the Mother of Humanity Monument.
Mhm.
And this visionary person, this visionary brother, is taking this Mother of Humanity monument to 5 destinations in the world. Okay. So I approached him and I said, I want to add the Mother of Humanity title, the monument, because it's so powerful. I want to add it in the Africa for Smart Kids book series. So at the back of my mind, I'm saying, like, please don't let him go on Amazon and buy one of my books.
Where's your application, lady?
So
You
after
gotta get
listen,
active.
after two conversations, he comes back to me and said, Beatrice, I bought one of your books from Amazon. And I'm like, oh my God. The conversation ends here. And then the next sentence says, I love, love, love the story. I love the way you get your characters to tell the story. I enjoyed it. And I'm still thinking, like, he's still going to still say something. That can be true. So the third message that came, that was the third correspondence now. He said, Beatrice, I want you to know how much I enjoyed reading book 2 of the Africa for Smart Kids series. I bought it, and because of the way you write it, it's so informative. The story is so clear. I enjoy the story. For that, I'm going to allow you to write the story of the Mother of Humanity Monument. And I was like, seriously? Seriously? So when you're mission driven, and you know that you have your weaknesses, I'm still learning to find a way to deal with my typos, because I realize that the older I get, the more books I write, the more typos there are. The difference is just that I'm more aware of the fact that I write with typos. And I've also come to discover that even people who are proofreading, they still come back and there's still typos. So I am comfortable with my typos. And I say, if you're looking for a book without typos, my Africa for Smart Kids book series may not be for you. And I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable. If you're looking for a book with content that will give you, that heritage that you're looking for, that will make you proud, then you're most welcome in my space. But tread the space with diligence, with care, because you may find typos in my book, and I will not stop writing because of the fear of making typos. So that is how open I am when it
When
comes to
when
this
you
book
start
series.
when you start making the big money, you will hire one of those top-notch proofreaders and editors.
I certainly
Don't
will
worry,
get there. I certainly will
don't worry.
get there.
We can get you can enlist your audience to show you where they are, and then you can pick them out. Get better as you go.
Yeah.
One woman I have great admiration for. She said, "Look, your job is to write this thing and let the people who proofread do that to get the story out, and you tweak, and your
Mm-hmm.
audience will tell you." And and
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one space where we can say we're different because we let our audience tell us, because we're
Mm-hmm.
not people with money, but we're doing an important work. Yes.
And P, I'm happy when someone comes back to me. I'm in a space where if you pick a typo, when someone says I found a typo, I say, tell me the page. I'll go correct it right now. I'm grateful for that. But I also know that there are some people out there who are just looking for the typos so they can put you down. If you're one of those, then you're in the wrong space if you come to my space. So I just have to make that clear. I see my brother, Fepe. I think you're somewhere out there in the world. Hey, Beatrice, thank you for the platform. So inspiring. I'm glad you're here. I know what you yourself have been doing to tell stories. I know that you come from the media space, and he's one of the people that I met when I came to South Africa who really helped me to start building the profile, even though the profile has changed. But I acknowledge you, brother, and thank you for being out there. Yes, P.
Well, I think
We are.
we've reached the end of our time here. Lots of stories, lots of ideas, lots to think about. So I would say to the listening audience, you can pick up this book, recommend this book to families. I think it's a very good book for families and to start conversations or to continue conversations. So happy buying and happy reading.
And that said, I'll say all the Globuntu books, those that we have spotlighted so far from the 3rd of August up until now, you'll find them on the Globuntu Books website, www.globuntubooks.com. We are still working on being able to offer you digital copies. That program is still in progress, but we want to get there as soon as possible so you can get your digital copies wherever you are. If you love the conversation, we are still at the beginning. We still have a lot of books lined up for you, from book one right up to book. We're doing book one today, so we still have like some 15 books lined up for you in this series. And each one of the books is so particular because it talks about something else. And what we're going to have to show you here is we take you through the manuscript so you see the kind of content that is in there if you want to buy it. And if you like the space, please bring more people into the space so we can share the inspiration, share the stories, have a good time with each other, but also talk about our legacy, celebrate one another. Like the page, share the videos. They're always on live stream. You can watch them forever. They're going to be there. We're not taking them down. So you can always come back. If you're a teacher, some of the things that we have shared may be interesting to you. So you're most welcome in this space. Otherwise, I will say we appreciate you for having hung in with us today, and those of you who have always been along the line. We have a gift for you. We're gonna have a gift for you. So if you're always coming and coming, we're seeing you. One of these fine days, there will be something in there. You must just be ready to grab it because we want to acknowledge the time that you spend with us. So, P, we are coming to the end
Yes.
of book one. We are looking forward to book two. It's still going to be you and I. Looking for Africa. The title is "Where is Africa?" That's what we'll be talking about tomorrow, and
Right.
the content is equally as rich as this one. And one thing that people will see is that how we grow from one book to the next. Where we started. By the time that we get to the last book that I published, which is the wisdom of ancestral wisdom, you see how much we have transformed along the line. And so I'm looking forward to the journey to tomorrow. And for today, P, thank you for the conversation. What is your last word?
Me?
Yes.
Go buy, go buy the book. Read it for yourself. Buy, buy. Globuntu. Is it on Amazon as well? Is it Amazon?
Yes, it is on Amazon. It is on Amazon. That one is on Amazon. And I think, P, we were talking about the characters. I think Prince Fuareke traveled. Prince
Yes.
Fuareke traveled from Cameroon via South Africa to where? Where did you take him to?
Oh, he's talking to Guyanese and American kids. So he's in What His Story Say. Yes,
Right,
and he's
right.
a navel string. So he is crossed into the What His Story Say and the navel string, and he's having conversations with children of the diaspora.
Nice. So, Furpe, you're watching from France. Huge privilege knowing and working with you. The pleasure is the same, my brother. Thank you so much. So, P, we are wrapping up the conversation, and tomorrow we will go look for Africa. Where is Africa? That is the title tomorrow. And we may be looking for some really, really powerful things in Africa tomorrow. So,
Right.
Rachel says, "Thank you. I have enjoyed every bit of it. Blessings." Rachel, enjoy and ignite your mind to write a story about Uganda. We want to see Uganda through your eyes. Okay? Thank you so much, P. So tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m., and we'll go look for Africa.
Yes. And good night. Oh, it's at night there. If it's night where you are,
Good night to you.